Tina Brown, president and founder of Vector Holding Group, a premier global business strategy and execution firm serving Fortune 500 companies. Welcome and thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So, we honored you as one of our top 66 leaders of the year, and we were very happy and excited to do so. Initially, you were one of our nominated companies, and we always love our nominated
Hmm.
companies. And you were brought to our attention by Carla Trotman of Electrosoft, who we absolutely love. And she spoke so
Yeah.
incredibly highly of your human centered leadership.
Hmm.
And so, why don't you start out by just sharing a little more about what your company does and how you do it
Hmm.
in that human centric way with our viewers?
Yeah. So Vector, we started out as a consulting firm in 2007. And it was a part-time consulting firm that I was doing in addition to working in the tech industry. And I was doing it because I really enjoy working on challenging projects and especially around product management and launching new products. And so I was doing those, and so every once in a while, it happens a lot in Silicon Valley where people have five jobs, right? So I did that in addition to working as an operator in a tech company as well. But over time, what started to happen is I've always had a mindset of just really thinking about the customer first. And throughout my career, I would usually use three C's, focusing on the customer,
Mm,
the culture,
mm,
right?
mhm.
As well as really having compassion. So it's like the customer is important because that's where the revenue is coming from, right? But the culture is important because the culture of the organization has to actually have that customer mindset. But then it's really about ultimately, I do believe the company and the culture is really about the people, and that's where the compassion comes from because you have to understand and try to put yourself in other people's shoes. So with Vector over that, so throughout my career, that's always been my leadership principle. And I started to see if you're thinking with compassion and from the customer mindset, it actually has differentiated us as a company because we're often coming in. Let's say I come in as a marketing engagement where we're launching a new product. Well, if we also see the customers having problems in operations and customer service to deliver on that product launch, we start to ask questions about that too. And so the comprehensiveness that we have, I think, is what differentiates us. But the core is really around understanding what is the true problem that the person's having. And so that's really how we've grown as a company and how we believe our culture of focusing on the person and that humanism, whether it's our employees or our customers, is what the big difference is.
We love that. Obviously, our whole center is based on that concept of the importance of people centric business and
Yeah.
how it leads to more success. You talk about how you were doing five jobs or a lot of different things when
Yes.
you got
Yeah.
started. Um, it sounds like this was your mantra in this business from the beginning. So,
Yes.
was there something in those other jobs you were doing before this that made you realize or made you feel that you needed to start your own thing that focused on this people centric perspective?
You know, that actually is a interesting question because I never really had the mind. My original plan was not to full-time start my own thing.
Ah,
Actually,
okay.
but what started to happen is in in those projects, right? I actually started hiring people full-time while I was still working as an operator to take on these projects. But the more and more projects we got, I saw that the culture that I wanted for the company that I was able to control as when I was doing most of the consulting myself, it started to change. And so that's really
Hmm.
where it drove me to actually want to be more full-time focused on the company. So my original plan actually wasn't to be an entrepreneur. It was really, but I was really passionate about helping these customers that I was doing work for and providing opportunities actually for people to actually join my company while I was still an operator at within technology companies in Silicon Valley. So it actually I'll give my husband credit. He's a serial entrepreneur and he's been an entrepreneur for a long time. And I think his encouragement of, hey, the way you can make sure you control that culture and make sure it has the culture that you want,
Mm.
you have to be there 100% as well. So that was really what prompted me to shift to that full time. And that happened probably 3 years ago, 2.5 to 3 years ago.
So you really felt like you had kind of this responsibility
Hmm.
to do this, right? Because
Yes.
you weren't seeing it, the capability of and the willingness to do it in these other positions. But
Hmm.
if you had control, you could make that happen, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I will say, in my roles, like I was a chief operating officer at the last company where I was, and then before that, I had chief of staff roles. So I will say I did hone that ability to have a human-centric culture within the where I had the control, like within the business unit that I was running or within the department I was running. And I think that's really rooted in how I was raised. Like my dad really, he was also a serial entrepreneur too. And I'm the middle daughter of of 6 girls actually. I have 5 sisters. And he instilled in us that each one of us has a very unique God-given gift,
Hmm.
right? And
Mhm.
I give him credit. He worked hard, like individually with each one of us to try to help us find that and would spend time with us in doing those things where he, saw those gifts. And so for me, I loved math and science. I loved, fixing things and working on things. Like I actually, as a kid, loved Legos more than dolls. And so he saw that in me and so spent a lot of time with me on science projects and doing things like that. And so I think my leadership style is also about with the employees that I have, understanding that they have a very unique gift. And if I can help them find that gift, that's how they thrive. Because then if you know what their gifts are, that's you can make sure that they're placed in the right seat, right?
Mhm.
Like when in that Good to Great book where he talks about, hey, first you have to find great people, put them on the bus, but then you have to make sure you put the people on the bus in the right seat so that the bus goes where you want it to go. And so I
Yeah.
think that being instilled in me, really believing that everyone has a special, unique gift and everybody's not the same. So really working to help them find that is really how you help them thrive. And I think it's the same way in culture and with customers, right? If you help work with a customer and understand that every customer is not the same. Right. And
Mhm.
as a company, we really
Yeah.
try not to come in with one methodology and say, hey, this is the vector way. Really, the vector way is we want to understand you as a customer, do the discovery, understand the problem, and then we'll come up with a solution, as opposed to saying, hey, here's the answer.
That's so powerful because I always try to get at why people-centric leaders lead that way, and there's always some really amazing story of their youth.
Yeah.
Somebody that instilled it in them, at a very young age. It never fails, and usually it's a parent, but
Hmm.
sometimes it's a teacher or somebody,
Yeah.
when they were younger, who really recognized their value, and
Hmm.
their unique human value and how to approach endorsing that and promoting that, and making them be better. And so I love that you shared that. So how and why do you uh, 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 put that into place in a repeatable way with
Hmm.
with the people that you work with and the people that you help?
Well, I will say that I really do believe that with your culture, the culture actually starts with making sure everyone is aligned around what your mission is and what your goals are as a company. But that really starts at the individual in terms of uh, making sure you're hiring people that you believe fit into that culture, and
Mm,
also having the understanding that when you see it's not a fit, being okay working with them to manage out and actually find different opportunities that don't fit. Because I think earlier
yeah.
in my career, I tried harder to um, try to work with people that maybe I could see they weren't going to be a fit to the culture I was trying to build, but I was working trying to help them, coach them into it, as opposed to helping them, you know, being more true to what I believe now, which is everybody has a different path. Everyone has pluses and minuses, and there's a place for everyone. And that means vector's not the place for everyone, like
Yeah.
it's really about finding the people that have, that have that, honestly, like you were saying, it's rooted in childhood, having people that really do can give me examples of how they are human centered, that they do care about the person who is the customer or the partner or the client or the employee, whatever that is. And so those are things that I look for in addition to the skills that you're looking for, right? But that
Yeah.
mindset, that humanism touch, and that focus on really caring about the outcomes of what's going to happen with the project, but really caring about the customer themselves, right? Or really
Yeah.
caring about the employee themselves and not just the outcome. And I think I don't know if that's necessarily something that's trained. That's really more of a,
Mm,
just a something that you look for in as you're interviewing people to bring them on board. And I would say that starts, I try to do it at the leadership level, because if you get it there at the leadership level, then it will trickle down to the organization.
yeah. That's such a personalized approach, which
Hmm.
I love hearing. And it kind of bucks the trend, unfortunately, right? Of, there's this, systemized, or this push
Yeah.
to have this systemized approach to
Hmm. Hmm.
staffing and everything else that we do. And
Yeah.
um, but ideally, right, that's the better way to do it. But do you get pushback on that?
Definitely. But I think it takes courage, right, to stand behind what you believe you want your company to be
Hmm.
as an owner.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. I have a cousin who used to work for PepsiCo. And this is when, and I can't remember the woman's name. This is when the woman CEO,
Oh
and I can't
yeah,
remember her
yes.
name
And I
right
I
now.
can't remember her
But
name either
she
though.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, but she's
Right.
amazing because
Yes.
I read her biography. So but so my cousin used to work there, and she had an all hands, and this was when the CEO first became CEO of PepsiCo. And one of the things she said was, "Hey, everybody has a gift, and I'm going to talk to you about what is going to do, the kind of people that we need to be here, and the kind of passion that we need to see." And she said, "I challenge all of you, if you go through this year and you're not passionate about PepsiCo, you need to leave PepsiCo because you need to
Mm,
find your passion somewhere else."
yeah.
And I mean, you think about the courage of a CEO to say that, like, listen, I want you here, but I don't, I mean, I want you here if you want to be here. If you want to be passionate about what we're doing. If you're not passionate, encourage you, you should start looking for where you're going to be passionate. And basically what my cousin told me was like that was how they structured all of the reviews, like in terms of, it wasn't only about what were your outcomes, it was really about what is your career path. And they would actively try to help you find, if that path wasn't fitting where they were going, they actively tried to help you find ways out to look for other things outside of PepsiCo. And so my cousin left PepsiCo because of that. And she's thankful for that, actually,
Wow. Yeah.
because of that bold, statement that the CEO was saying. She was like, because my understanding is she came in to come and change the culture. And
Hmm.
so she was like, this is where we're going. And if you can't, I'm not being, I want everyone to be passionate about where they are, and that's important for your career. And so,
Have you had clients? It's
mm,
give me a little bit of the story of your success, so to speak, anecdotally. Have you had clients
mm,
that have come to you and maybe said, "Wow, do you think this really could work this way?" And and you've had to kind of prove it to them.
mm. That's a great uh I'm just thinking about there is one uh customer that we did walk away from because it
Hmm.
wasn't in alignment with our goal. And honestly, it was tough because they were a big customer. But it wasn't the kind of work uh the kind of work that we got from them was great, but honestly, the way they were treating our people was not.
And you walked away. Yeah, so that speaks a lot to your commitment to this. And
Yeah, the way
um,
it just wasn't a fit. And trust me, it was hard. We put up with it for too long. I think I know in hindsight, I put up with it too long. I did before I made the decision. But I'm very, but I think that signal was a big signal because I found out that when we did that, one person actually said, you know what, I was really considering leaving because
hmm,
they were considering leaving. I mean, they told me that after we actually left the client, they were considering leaving the company because they felt, hey, if this is the kind of clients we're going to be working with, maybe not, maybe that's not, maybe I don't want to be at Vector. So
yeah. Now, obviously,
yeah.
you have enough clients and you've done a great job of building your business to find the kind of clients that are consistent with your viewpoint
Hmm.
and your philosophy. So, first of all, hats off to you for doing that work. But, it also says that you can do business this way, and
Yeah.
be successful,
Hmm.
and not in spite of doing business this way, but because of doing this way. And but it also cuts to your willingness, to make hard decisions.
Yeah.
That could be costly. And in fact, you shared one about, there was a possibility of cutting costs if you parted ways with a partner
Yeah.
that you had been with for a long time. Share
Hmm.
with our viewers a little bit about that anecdote because that really grabbed me when you wrote that.
So remind me again, tell me the because we have a
Well,
lot of them.
yeah, well, anyone you want to tell me would be
Yeah.
great, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because there was, I guess, there was someone that you had been working with for a while, and somebody else came along and said, we can do it much cheaper.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, yeah, that happened. Okay, I remember that. Yeah, that actually happened last year. Yeah. So it was actually a partner that we've worked with for, what, we've been around 2007. So we've been working with this partner in Asia for 15 years.
yeah,
So
wow.
strong, and actually we kind of grew up together, like
Mm,
I think when we started working with them, maybe they were 4 years old, we were 2 years old. So we kind of
hmm.
grew up together in our business. And they have a really strong network of partners in Asia that they use for some of their work. And we were getting a lot of price pressure from a client. Um, and my team started aggressively looking for alternatives because this partner that we had for 50 years, their pricing was just too high. So we were looking at other options. And they knew that we were looking at other options. But my team found the partner in Asia. And once we started doing our due diligence, they gave us the quotes. We started saying, well, wow, you're such a great fit. But then they told us that no, we actually asked the question, well, tell us what partners you've worked with, blah, blah, blah. And once they listed the partner that we've had a relationship for 15 years, we were like, we can't, well, we could have. There was nothing like legally
Yeah.
binding us, but just from a relationship perspective, it just wasn't the right thing to do. So we told them and we told our partner that, we had been talking with them, but we were choosing not to do work with them because that just wouldn't be the appropriate thing to do when it was their customer as well.
How successful are you at, or should I say, how much do you see your clients starting to maybe understand this way of doing business more and more? Is it
Mm.
we talked about in the beginning, whether you can necessarily train people to be like this, you kind of have to have it inside of you. But are you seeing more and more of an openness among businesses to be more human centric?
You know, I would say yes since the pandemic, yeah.
Okay.
And again, it's because we work with Fortune 500 companies, and
Yeah.
from what I've seen, is I think there's a lot more sensitivity around the mental health, the well-being of the person, or
Okay.
more discussions around that than I saw before the pandemic.
That's good to hear.
You know?
Because we talk about it and we show cases of it and whatnot, and but you're right on the front lines of dealing with a lot of
Yeah.
these Fortune 500 companies. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
what do you feel? Is there something that you do or something that you institute that you feel can help? Is there a process that you go through that can help your clients or other
Hmm.
businesses in general to understand and be more like this?
Yeah. Um, that's a great question. I would say, I mean, remember I mean, we're more than a consulting firm, but we do business services for clients, right?
Hmm.
So, it is just so important to make sure, and this sounds so simple, but a lot of people don't do it. It's so important for people to feel heard, for you to listen.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
for you to just listen. I
Hmm.
mean, I can tell you there's new services that we have developed as a company because we actually were listening to the client. Like
Hmm.
we weren't coming in saying, "Hey, here's our widget. Here you go." We were actually saying, please tell us what your problem is. Oh, even if our intention was to bring the widget, once we realize that they don't need it, right? It's about um that, like I said, I really think it is a humanism component. And I guess from for us as a company, what if I was saying, if I was talking to leadership, in terms of how to instill this, the question is like, in your board meetings, in your executive meetings, how much time are you really talking about your human capital? Like really,
Hmm.
like how much time strategically are you really talking about that?
And you talk about listening. I'm going to just say, don't downplay that at all, Tina, because
Yeah.
that's actually one of our 10 principles that we
Mm.
focus on.
Hmm.
One of the that one of the principles of social capital leaders and people centric leaders, because so many of the most successful leaders have said that that's their number one,
Yeah.
focus that they think is so central to being able, to do this. And it does sound simple, but it's
Hmm.
sometimes so hard to do. There's
Yeah.
an ego involved,
Hmm.
and sometimes we just either forget to, or it's just too hard to listen, and so we don't do it. But we have told some of the most extraordinary
Yeah.
success stories of how companies have turned around based on listening. I mean, Hubert Joly, who was the CEO of Best Buy, and he came
Hmm.
in and he turned that company around from being a failing company and almost going bankrupt to being a successful company. And he related this story to me of how his first day he just went on the floor to one of the
Yeah.
Best Buys and he
Hmm.
just listened,
Exactly.
and it's extraordinary. So thank you for
Yeah.
focusing in on that, because you're absolutely right, and I love that.
Yeah. It's, but you're right. Something like I always think about like, man, that is so simple, but you're right. It's not so simple, especially when you have pressures of the business and things like that. But it really comes down to like staying true to what you think are your core tenets of your business, and a core tenet is always your people. Like
Hmm.
it just is. I mean, and clearly clients are people too. And I think there's a lot of opportunity too, right, with AI. I don't know the answers yet, but I just I still believe with even with AI and robotics and the advances of it, it's still going to be people doing business with people,
Tell me a little
you
bit more
know?
about your thoughts on that, because obviously this is a hot button issue in so
Yeah,
many ways, shapes, and forms.
it
And
is.
we try to be very positive and talk about AI for good and all the value
Hmm.
that it has. But from your perspective, right? I mean, are you seeing challenges with it in the companies that you're consulting with?
You know, not yet. Not yet. And what I'll say is I think it's because the size of companies that we're working with, they're still not fully like they know they have to engage with it, but they haven't fully figured out how to do
Hmm.
it in a way that's going to be, secure, that's going to still protect their IP. Like I think there's still a lot of concern around it where there's it's happening within companies, but I'm just saying from my perspective, I don't see a lot of the companies that I've worked with actually having a very conscious, focused strategy yet,
Hmm.
you know? But everyone knows that they have to have a strategy. I
Yeah.
just haven't seen it come through yet. But I mean, right now, our belief is that, I can say as a business, and I believe we benefit from it, because I mean, like, from the Small Business Association, right? We're still technically considered a small business because of you can have up to 1,000 employees if you're like a company that focuses on business services.
Yeah.
And I think businesses like us, we actually can excel with AI because we're so it actually to me it allows my people to focus more on the people things.
Okay.
It allows them to
Okay.
spend more time on the listening or on the client because now they have tools that allow them they don't have to spend, half a day putting together a workflow. I was just talking to someone about this
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
Like literally, I can talk to the AI and it builds the workflow in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that used to take half a day, right? So
Yeah.
now I've given the workflow. So now my work is I can spend more time talking about the workflow. I can spend more time getting feedback on the workflow as opposed to actually doing that actual work. Or maybe I just don't have to have and I don't need an analyst to do it. I can bring on a higher level person that can use that AI to do that work and actually add more value with expertise, from their experiences.
Yeah, I love that, because I was going to
Mhm.
ask you, have from a strategist point of view or a business strategy point of view, how do you think AI can be used in a way that's not dehumanizing but pro-humanizing? And I
Hmm.
think that's a perfect example that you just gave. And maybe that's the bottom line of anything, right? Of any technology is, if we're going to
Exactly.
use it to help make our companies and help make our businesses more human or less human, right? And if your
Exactly.
starting point is to make it more human, then anything you use, you can use for good, right?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I mean, I spend a lot of time, outside of work, focusing on like access, like for example, helping girls have more access to opportunities, especially girls of color that are, in urban areas, or in terms of still, in America, the wealth gap, Black Americans have still the biggest wealth gap. Actually, our wealth gap has grown more and more since the 60s compared to every other demographic in America, right? And
Wow.
and
Yeah.
and I think a lot of that has to do with access,
Hmm.
right? And so my hope is that AI actually will help lower the bar for access, give more access to information, just give more access to capabilities. That's my hope.
And
Like
that's
that's the for good. But
yeah,
we'll
no,
see.
exactly. And that's an
Yeah.
important topic I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you about, as well as, we see this human-centric, people-centric business strategies as a necessary movement, really.
Yeah.
Not
Hmm.
just a way of doing business, but a necessary component in a world where there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of struggling, and we
Yeah.
really believe that business can help to alleviate that. Um, and one of those ways is by creating access
Hmm.
to the fruits of
Yeah.
success and the fruits, of business. And is that something that you try to implement, through your business as well?
Oh, definitely, right. I mean, there's uh we try to support our employees giving back to the community.
Mm.
We also we're actually we already do profit sharing with our company, but we're also
Ah,
we're looking at a plan of also like just choosing a percentage of our profits that employees can then pick where, what are we going to actually donate those profits to?
oh,
A
wow.
percentage of those profits. So that's something that
Yeah.
our leadership team is looking at. We haven't implemented yet, but that's one of our goals for next year is actually to shift to that as well. Because I think it's important that you're right. Businesses, I mean, we're part of the community, right?
Yeah.
We're part of our input is we are providing jobs, but I think also we have a responsibility to give back to the community as well. And I'm involved with a couple of organizations in Silicon Valley that are focused on that as well. One of them is called the American Leadership Forum, where that's exactly what we're focused on. Is it there's so you think about how much money there is in Silicon Valley.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
the
Right.
the premise of our organization is to bring those leaders together with nonprofit leaders, with leaders in government to figure out how to focus those resources to solve the toughest problems, right, in Silicon Valley.
And it sounds like you've been doing business like that for a while,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's something that's close to your heart.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Obviously, the need to do that is there, that there's no argument for that. Have you seen that doing business that way also helps your business?
Oh, definitely. 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 Well, I think it's because it helps my business because, um, you know, like I said, I'm a part of the American Leadership Forum.
Hmm.
I actively seek out other leaders that have that
Mm.
mindset. That's actually how I met Carla. That's actually how we met.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
so
Yeah.
that's I'm actively always seeking out other leaders that have that approach to things and I actually met her at a women's executive dinner. I think it was in Silicon Valley. I'm not sure why but yeah, I met her at a dinner and we were talking and that's how we connected when I understood that was also her mindset as well.
I love
So,
hearing that.
mhm.
That's one of the reasons we started our whole center is we
Yeah.
really wanted to have a supportive community for leaders like this to learn about each other, to promote each other, to
Hmm.
talk about each other, and to really feel defended in some ways, shapes, or forms for the way they
Yeah.
do business,
Yeah,
right?
you're not
Because
alone. Exactly.
Exactly. Well, we've had so many of our leaders say, I believe this strongly, but when I get pushback, it's really nice to be able to say, hey, I'm not crazy. I'm not just doing this because I thought this was a nice way to do things.
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
all these other leaders that do business this
Hmm.
way and succeed because of it. So, I love having that
Yeah.
confirmed, by you as well.
Hmm.
I could talk to you and we could talk for hours about all
Yeah.
the things that you're doing, and we would love to. But I'd love to just, kind of have one last, question for you to answer, which is,
Yeah.
do you believe that the future of business is going to be going more in this direction of being
Mm.
people centric, and why or why not?
You know, okay, so I am a glass half full person, okay? So I'm always the optimist, like,
I love that.
right? Always the optimist. I'm always have hope. But you know, so I'll give you an example. Like with AI and technology, right?
Hmm.
I find I am getting more and more interested in things that are actually real people, like in terms of entertainment. Like I'm finding it more interesting to watch live sports even more than I used to.
Huh.
And I wonder if I think it's because now everything's on demand, everything's streaming, everything's
Yeah.
on here. Like it's just so, and you kind of know what's going to happen, with AI now, you'll be able to predict, you'll be able to create your own stories and those. Whereas with sports, like to me, that's one of the last things where you really don't know what's going to happen.
It's real.
Like
Yeah.
it's really you, and everyone is going to find out at the same time as you do, right? And I think that humanness, I think, is going to become more and more valuable to people. That's what I believe. So I believe that it's actually the companies that lean into that actually will be able to still, I mean, they'll leverage the technologies, I mean, like for example, the internet, right? The people that win with when we all move to e-commerce, still the people
Hmm.
that win are the ones that focused on the customer experience.
Mm.
Right? It
Yes.
wasn't
Yes.
it wasn't about
Yeah.
the technology. They still
Yeah.
thought about, okay, yeah, but what
Yeah.
happens when they click on this? What's their experience? Well, like how do they
Yeah.
feel when when they actually click on this link and go to this website? I think the people that focus there are the ones that win. And I still think the people that focus on the human part are the ones that are going to win, even with AI, I think. But again, remember, I'm a half full person. I'm not.
No, I think that makes total sense. And I
Yeah,
agree with you 100%. I
yeah.
mean, I think, in the 11th hour, humanity, has this ceaseless ability to
Hmm.
just come back and reclaim,
That's right.
victories, out of the jaws of defeat, and I
That's
think,
right.
the
Yeah.
more this technology is pushed to dehumanize or try to dehumanize in a lot of ways, the more humans, get up and say no.
Yeah.
And we see that with younger generations now who are giving up their smartphones and getting flip phones again and saying, you know
I
what,
know. Yeah.
we need to talk to each other more. So
Love
I'm
that.
excited, and it sounds like you are. And so I'm excited for all of us because I think we're going to have this incredible human renaissance, for a lot of
Yeah.
reasons.
Hmm.
And we are very excited to have you be a part of that human
Thank
revolution.
you.
And
It's an honor, really. It is. It is. Thank you.
likewise, likewise. Well, hey, Tina, thank you so much for taking the time. And tell our viewers your website so they know where to go.
Oh,
But
yeah. It's the name of our company. So it's vectorholdinggroup.com.
okay,
Or you can
wonderful.
also go to vhg.ai. So that's shorter. So
Okay,
both of those will get you there. Dot
VHG.ai.
AI. Hmm.
So talking about AI, that's a good way to round it
That's
out.
right. That's right.
Well, I would advise everybody to check you out and
Thank you.
see how you what you do and how you do it because it sounds like you're a wonderful company with doing everything for all the right reasons. So, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Tina, for doing business the way you do and for taking the time to share it with myself and our viewers. Very
No,
much
thank you.
appreciated.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.